Alrighty guys, Gus from Blacklab Media. So today we're going to be looking at another one of these cursed video games. This is a very cool one. So delving into the story of a game designer from SEGA. His name is Ganamata Fakiro. And getting into the little bit of history there, but we're going to begin the story by looking at this Twitter account, which here, June 26th, in the first tweet, this SEGA Saturn game was delivered to my house. Right now, following that, we have an image of a SEGA Saturn game. So those who don't know, we can go into a little bit of the history of the SEGA Saturn, but it was a console.
In the early 1990s, it was obvious that disc-based technology and 32-bit processing had a lot to offer for the future of home console gaming. Sega famously expanded the power of the Genesis with a number of stopgap upgrades, but Sega brought both CDs and 32-bit processing to the core of their new flagship console with the SEGA Saturn. This is RGB 209, all about the SEGA Saturn and getting the best picture from it.
When it came to 3D graphics. However, developers capitalized on the Saturn's hardware strengths and created some of the most impressive 2D games ever made. After a successful launch in Japan, the Saturn was released in North America and Europe in spring and summer of 1995. The surprise North America launch is particularly infamous, with a lack of advance notice upsetting retailers. It has generally been considered an ill-advised move to beat Sony's console to market. The SEGA Saturn displays most games at 240p, a progressive resolution compatible with consumer CRTs that works extremely well for low-res, sprite-based games. This was also the norm for previous console generations. However, the SEGA Saturn and its contemporary consoles also marked the beginning of regular use of 480i, which was the intended resolution for NTSC television.
Very interesting. So the story continues. Howling gusts of cold air sound like they could flay the flesh from an animal's bones in Colorado right now. Windy as fuck in Colorado. I live on Fossil Creek Drive in Clarendon Hill in Fort Collins. Alright, so now this first view of the packaging. The disc was wrapped in all black packaging with some white writing on it. We knew it was unusual straight away. I'll show you the video I was took. It was very suspicious from the beginning, and then we've got some wording on there. So key next Demon's Crest high low. Okay, I thought it must be a gift from my nephew John Phillip, because he actually owns a Saturn. He's a Gen Z hipster and he's really into all that retro gaming stuff. I called JP and he said he knew nothing about it. So there we go. JP reckons the whole thing is a practical joke which somebody's playing on me, which would make sense, but I can't think of anyone who dislikes me enough to go to that much effort. So let's keep going. So the game sat on my bench for a week before I got around to borrowing JP's machine. In that time, of course, I'd done my own research on the game, but there was very little to discover, not listed on any archive or database of the SEGA company.
Potter around, I thought I would just do an update.
The game straight away loads to this character select screen, but the buttons won't allow you to select anything. I thought it might be...
Because I've got to see what's going on. I heard a bang.
what appears to be a secondary character select screen with totally different characters.
Organization. I not sworn to secrecy upon my life, upon the penalty of death. I'm pleading with you guys. Just let it be. I swear I won't say anything about the organization, but I have to move on now. Okay? I'm leaving for Tasmania in the morning, so this is the last scene from last week. I've personally just let
Seems to be a member of a cult who is proclaiming themselves out of it.
Sorry for showing you, but that is deceased.
There was a weird smell like burnt almonds at Nonna's house or spilled citronella oil. Was having trouble breathing, the air was so thick it was suffocating. I don't know how well the sound came out on the video, but I had heard the thumping at the time. I work at Ace Hardware or Fireso this week following the slow. Jesse at work laughed at me for being scared of a video game. Of course, I know the events are unrelated, just a coincidence I was playing the game when the electrical storm happened. But the video also kind of creeped me out. It must have been filmed years ago and then recorded off an old VHS cassette. Then someone had programmed it into the game. It's a lot of work for a practical joke. Here's where we get a bit more information. So Jessie's cute. I think she knows I'm attracted to her. It's a bit embarrassing. I did ask her if she wanted to research the game with me, but she declined. That Thursday night, I jumped on all the SEGA forums to ask about the game. Okay, and this is where we get some forums that the user has. He's wondering if anyone has any knowledge of the SEGA Saturn game called Death Cult. Right. Okay. Nobody was very helpful at first, but then a user named Roquin5 pointed in the direction of another forum called Energy is Eternal. He told me that Death Cult wasn't a real video game, and it was part of an old ARG, but these guys on this forum would apparently help me. Okay, so then they told me that Death Cult wasn't... Yeah, so there you go. Here's the thread they shared with me, and that's when we get to some of the background of this whole story. Okay, so let's get straight into it. Okay, so everyone seemed pretty excited about the prospect of sharing my knowledge of the SEGA Saturn game Death Cult. This is a member of the forums named I Was There. We don't have any other information about. Here goes. Now the meaning of me getting this information is that my family is quite good friends with Hideo Kojima. For those who don't know Koji, he's a genius, responsible for epic works like Metal Gear in the 80s. He has long been regarded as a master of bringing the cinematic to gaming, and for instance something which I will discuss a bit later, the highly acclaimed work Police Norse for the Saturn, which was created in 1994. I live in Tokyo and my family has been friends with Kojima since the early 90s. He was always a highly creative guy, and he and my dad got on really well, even though my dad was much more practical and less interested in creative stuff. But around the dinner table when Koji would come around, he would often tell us gossip about the video game industry. My dad always loved gossip, news and rumours. Koji had a pretty tragic upbringing. His dad died when he was 30 years old. He bonded when young with a close friend with similar interests whose name was Ganamata Fakiro. So far less well known than Koji. We'll get into why, but he will be the centre of a lot of this story. This is going to be hidden to anyone. Right? I'm telling you guys here, it's quite private, so please make sure this is limited. Restricted membership. Okay, so Koji was very interested in working for Nintendo when he was younger, so he was naturally pretty jealous when his childhood friend Ganamata, or Gun as Koji used to call him, got a job working at Nintendo. This one was before Koji was working for Konami, but during the time the roles, we might say, were reversed. As Koji related to Dad, it was always he, when younger, who was jealous of his friend Gun and his initial success. Now, Gun was working at Nintendo in 1985, whilst he wasn't a key player. He did do grunt work on some pretty impressive projects, such as the Ghosts and Goblins series, who you may recognise my avatar Filetale. Originally known as Demon World Village in Japan, the series was very influential on the young Ganamata and would inspire later work of his. Okay, so just to sidetrack a little, I should briefly explain something, which is that both Ganamata and Hideo were members of the Demole International Youth Group. So basically a youth mentoring group, but quite popular in Japan. To give some context, Walt Disney was a Demole member, and there have been other prominent members involved in both American and Japanese society involved with Demole, the defining feature of the capes that they wear. Okay, and I suppose the reason I'm telling you this is maybe to give you some insight into Ganamata's character. He was quite obsessed with America and the West, so much so that just out of high school he made a trip to Los Angeles and Hollywood. LA was a good prospect for those working in gaming at the time. Gun would hop back and forth between Tokyo and Hollywood many times during his life. Koji would share some stories about what he apparently got up to over there. Understand, Koji really was quite obsessed with Gun, although it became in more of a fearful way in later life. One such story was where Gun was invited to a very luxurious party in the Hollywood Hills. Some very old rich guy showed him his collection of rare and antique books. This was allegedly part of where Gun developed his esoteric leanings and some of the thelemic and odd mythology he would become obsessed with later in life. He came back to Japan to work on the sequel to Ghosts and Goblins, Now, the gameplay for Ghosts and Goblins is similar to that of Ghouls and Ghosts. The player controls the knight Arthur, who must advance through a series of eerie levels and defeat a number of undead and demonic creatures in his quest to restore all the people killed by Lucifer, Loki in English language, Sega Genesis and Master System versions. Koji said something Ganamata always boasted about was that he was the one who influenced the creators at Capcom to later develop the demonic gargoyle character Firebrand as a hero in later games for Game Boy and SNES, such as Gargoyle's Quest and the cult favourite Demon's Quest. Alright, now Koji and Gun were quite at the forefront of technology, and by the time they both ended up working for SEGA in the 90s, they were heavily involved with online forums. One particular forum which they both gravitated to was called Avatar Garden, and it was a very rudimentary 3D chat which allowed the users to roam around and discuss things in a virtual space. This 3D chat site is long dead and no longer exists, but I'm told by Koji that Gun used the avatar of a black shogun. It was called Black Star Shogun, and this is where he let out more of the wild side of his personality. Okay, so to try and speed up and just get to the point, so Koji obviously started to become very successful at SEGA. He worked on some great games, including the fantastic and bizarre Police Noughts, which remains one of my favourite and most creative games of all time. Now it was Gun who was becoming jealous of Koji's success, and he started to explore his bitterness in bizarre ways. Not before he tried his very own pitch at SEGA for the Saturn system. This was the turning point where Koji was at the pinnacle of his potential within his career, and it looked promising as the SEGA board got very excited about Ganamata's pitch for the game Death Cult. The concept for Death Cult was insane from the beginning. Ganamata's pitch to the creative team was that he wanted to take real people and put them into the game engine, so you would be able to select these profiles of actual human beings with real lives. SEGA quickly told him this would be illegal, and so Gun had to rethink everything quickly if he was going to sell the pitch. Apparently, on his previous trip to Hollywood, Ganamata had picked up an old script from an antiquarian, an extremely rare draft of a book by Alexander Dumas, which was never released. The story was called The Villain, and apparently Gun used this to develop the plot for his game. Right, so the plot basically revolved around this villain character and these other protagonists coming together to battle against and thwart him. The original characters were Otoya Fukiya, the samurai's son, Leshel Junjiro, the woodmaker, Tatsuya Oyano, the owner of the well, and Laku Shiyanu, the metalsmith, which should be familiar to us by now, and a secret character. The pitch went well, and SEGA made bids to release the game. Production finalised as Gun and Koji met the virtual Avatar Garden to discuss their success. At the time, Gun had built his own rooms, which he was creating the Temple of Saturn, and he would interact in this space with other members of the forum. It was full of odd esoteric symbolism. The main room was called the Engine Room, which contained podiums on which these icons which you could pick up and interact with. The main 3D icons were a sickle, which would help you change the navigation of the room, a controller, apparently symbol of free will, a spanner, which helped you change color settings, a gun, and a candle. Joji would describe Gun's behavior in this time as very cult-like. In this, with other avatars like Mickey Mouse and Pixie Puck, they would partake in these kind of rituals within the 3D world, and created loads of hidden rooms and bizarre murals. Death Cult was released in 1995, production was finished and initial testing showed the game to be quite popular. SEGA instantly started producing 100 to 500 copies for first release. This is about the time that everything went well wrong for Ganamata Fakiro. The game had already been released and was in homes, then the report was dropped on SEGA's new CEO Shuichiro Imuraji. A man named the Shoujinjiro was suing the company for thousands for libel he had been used in Ganamata's game. He wasn't the only one to come out. It turned out that Ganamata had lied, gone completely against SEGA's wishes, and used real people in his game. He was very quickly disgraced and fired from SEGA. It would be a huge scandal, which SEGA's lawyers tried to bury. The game was pulled, and any knowledge of its existence was attempted to be covered up. As it turns out, these legal proceedings would be overshadowed by SEGA's larger problems. With the release of the Nintendo 64, the Saturn dived in popularity, and the company would be marred by financial problems on an ongoing capacity. Ganamata died in obscurity, never achieving recognition for Death Cult and becoming an almost unknown. Koji said he became lost in Avatar Garden, where his actions became stranger and stranger, to the point that Koji stopped using the 3D site altogether and ceased talking with his friend. And that more or less is the story of the rise and the fall of Death Cult for the SEGA Saturn. One thing my dad always regrets, although Koji stopped being friends with Ganamata, he abandoned any of his stuff, and Dad never requested a copy of the game. The game is so rare and difficult to find that most pervasively people simply believe the game does not exist. I have never found anyone with a physical copy of the game, although I would love to play it. This is my story, and I hope you enjoyed it. Just to continue on with this Twitter, which gives us a good idea of the whole thing. I felt strange, sitting in my garden and looking at the creepy cover of the game, with a feminine figure in a silver mask staring up at me. Whether the story was real, or the whole thing was just an ARG, it still felt unbelievable odd and made me anxious. It's sick, and part of me wants to keep investigating this, while the other part's still starting to wonder whether I wouldn't be better to leave it alone. Do I play the game again, or throw it in the trash? And then we've got some people here saying, play it, don't you want to know what's going on with it? You can find 3 pictures from inside the game. Play it if you feel up to it, make sure to take breaks. Okay, so next we have, thanks to everyone who helped me discover more about this game. Big shout out to one of the players for discovering the QR code, which proves this appears to be part of an ARG. I followed the suggestions of mentioned user and looked through receipts and found this, and then we go into a receipt. Okay, so purchased by Blacklab products. Large wooden tiki statue, and then underneath SEGA Saturn MK sign. Okay. Blacklab Media sound familiar. There's some strange MK sign written on the invoice. It can mean something. Okay, so I've been having these weird glitches since I watched the game for the first time. At first they were just little things I noticed, misplaced signs, words. Then I started noticing other human beings who seemed like glitchy NPCs. That's weird. I know, it's fucked. They have no faces and I can't look at them because they seem to radiate static or snow from an old VHS. My camera picks it up too. Been talking with a Reddit user about the Chiliad mystery. Seems to think LA Noire reference could be linked to soundtracks when you download GTA 5. Okay, so isn't there a photo of the name of the stores on GTA 5? Okay, so this is interesting. This is where we get into the Chiliad mystery. Now we will be linking to another video we've just had explaining this video, but essentially, if it's connected to this picture, okay. I've been speaking to Jessie from work about the Chiliad mystery, and turns out she knows about it. Guess she is into some nerdy things. Now she's more interested in learning about the game. Tempted to play and show her. Don't bring her into the game. She'll experience glitches as you do. I don't think so. It's just a game. Did speak to my doctor about that, and he said it's probably linking to my sleeping problems. I have insomnia. Okay. So the Chiliad mystery. Yeah. So we're going to link to this. So I believe I found something else. There's a booklet inside the game cover. It was all blank except for this one page which I have scanned. No idea what to make of it. Then we've got this clue. Red. Blazon Gateway to Saturn LA Noir version 2. Legend says the world was once divided into two different lands. One realm was ruled by humans and the other was ruled by demons. One day 6 magical stones fell from the sky into the demon realm. Inscribed on the stones were the crests of fire, earth. There seems to be some sort of code. I believe people have already tried to unpack that code. So Dread go to Irvine, humans rules mystery Chiliad civil war. Okay, so this is where there's a connection between Irvine and SEGA. Blue tags are dime, so yeah, people tried to solve the puzzle. Finally persuaded Jessie to come around and play the game this weekend. Jake P wants to see it too, so I guess that's what's going to go down. I'll let you know how it goes. Do you have a picture of Jessie and JP? Yes. These are some screenshots from online qualifiers. Employee of the month, Jessie Linklater. This month's Ace of Hearts goes to Jessie in sales and distribution. We all need to tip our hat to this versatile and extremely hardworking young lass. Since Jessie joined us in 2019, our sales division has grown and we've increased inbound sales by 15%. Jessie is extremely dependable, and other staff describe her as someone who always has your back. Funny, charming, and a pleasure to be around. Couldn't do without you, Jessie. Thanks for being the star that you are. Classic Gamers of Colorado member profile. John Philip Ramsey. I love video gaming and I'm a huge fan of older classic games. Modern gaming for the most part is still great. Games are bigger, possess higher production values and are more immersive than ever. Back in the days, the controls were much simpler, which means greater combos. They were more creative, they were challenging, the music was more memorable, they are also more fun. Okay, so this is just sort of profiles of some of the people in the story. Okay. Alright, so now we have...
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Night started out normal enough. We actually got the game to load. I've got so much to tell though, things got weird. Jessie got pretty far into the game. Nothing unusual happened until she solved one of the puzzles. There was a key in the well which you had to retrieve with the bucket. When she used the key to open a gate in the village, there was another one of those crazy electrical storms. Okay. I ran upstairs to check out what the noise was, which is when I noticed the backyard was full of those NPCs with the glitchy faces. They didn't show up on my camera that time, so it was hard to convince Jessie and JP. So I had to When we got outside, I knew Jessie and JP could see them too. The camera picks them up sometimes, but it drains my battery fast. We took off in the car and we've been on the road since. Seems like everyone else who played the game has turned into one of those. This might be my last tweet for a while. I need to figure out a way to the NPCs working there seem to be fairly fast. me see. Letters and a code, which I'm understanding thus far is yet to be decoded or broken. So yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with that. So it seems to be still unsolved, this ARG, and in relation to this game. So apparently a few people have received this Death Cult game in the post at the moment as it stands, and only there's sort of wild reports, but yeah, quite interesting. And alright, now so we'll just end with this one other video, which is something that has been shared around on Discord by a user named 12, which we believe to be linked to that ARG and the Cursed video game, and it's apparently a video from the deep web from one of these red rooms. So yeah, it's pretty creepy, and check out our video on the Chiliad mystery. We will be doing deep dive into red rooms as well soon. So yeah, let's enjoy.
Look, I was gone. I was going. You guys are bringing me back into it! Look, you don't have